Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining us for this week's Crossroads Politics here on WTHR+. I'm Dustin Grove.
And I'm Emily Longnecker. The federal government is in a shutdown right now, and there's no sign of it ending anytime soon.
On Friday, the Senate tried for a fourth time to try and pass the same spending bill that has failed 3 times before.
Amy Kiley breaks down the likelihood of the two finding common ground.
Today, the Senate is voting on the same GOP funding bill that already failed 3 times. Democrats are expected to block it once again.
We haven't wanted to negotiate. We just want to keep the government open.
We are ready, we are willing, we are able to sit down with anyone, anytime, any place.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune says he's considering a talk with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. In the meantime, if today's vote fails, Thune says he'll hold another one Monday on that same funding bill.
We are asking Democrats to do nothing more than pass a clean, nonpartisan bill to fund the government for a few more weeks so that we can get back to bipartisan appropriations work.
Democrats say they don't want to keep voting on the same legislation. They want to negotiate changes. They say their primary goal is to stop health care premiums from going up for people on Obamacare.
Enact a spending agreement that actually meets the needs of the American people while at the same time addressing the Republican health care crisis.
Meanwhile, the White House says President Donald Trump plans to fire thousands of federal workers during the shutdown. 2 officials say that could start today or this weekend.
We're going to look at agencies that don't align with the administration's values that we feel are a waste of the taxpayer dollar.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
So the political finger pointing continues. Of course, the federal shutdown impacts the state of Indiana as well. Thousands of Hoosiers work for the government, between 23 and 25,000 civilians plus military, and none of them are getting paid right now.
Yeah, and even more Hoosiers rely on government programs, from federal housing help to small business loans. I spoke with Governor Mike Braun about whether the state government would step in to fill any of those gaps.
We will get through it, and the issue is that's not sustainable. So if Indiana does lose some benefits in the short run, if it's essential, we would look at maybe doing something to keep it in place. But we run a good operation that lives within our means. The federal government does not.
Governor Braun also claimed that Indiana isn't as reliant on federal money as some states, but the list of states more reliant may be a short one, according to the Indiana Capitol Chronicle, who cited the left-leaning Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Indiana is the 3rd most reliant state in the country on federal money.
And as for Indiana's own congressional delegation, so far they're towing their respective party lines. Republicans blaming Democrats, Democrats blaming Republicans. All right, the maps that choose Indiana's congressional delegation could be changing. We're going to take you inside a meeting to hear what the public thinks about that. But first,
the first ICE detainees arrive at an Indiana prison. The vigil praying for change next on Crossroads Politics.
Welcome back. On Wednesday, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, began sending detainees to the Miami Correctional Facility just outside Bunker Hill.
Right, and before they arrived, faith leaders held their second prayer vigil outside the facility. I covered that vigil. Many of the clergy there quoted scripture about welcoming the stranger, and several clergy there asked the question, what would Jesus do when it comes to undocumented immigrants in America?
They marched in silence, heads bowed in prayer for immigrants across the United States, including the ones who will be brought here this week. These Hoosiers, many of them who stand in front of congregations every Sunday, stood in the grass outside the Miami Correctional Facility, praying against what they say are unjust and oppressive actions by the Trump administration when it comes to immigrants in this country. Many wore red, signifying solidarity in suffering, something they believe is happening to immigrants in ICE facilities across the country. Many calling attention to what Scripture says.
There's no question what Jesus would do. He told us, he said, when you did it to one of the least of these, you did it to me. And so probably he identified with the hungry, the naked, the sick, and the prison. And so Jesus might be incarcerated if he were here. Mary and Joseph and Jesus had to be immigrants to Egypt shortly after he was born. Luckily, they were not separated.
The first 15 detainees arrived at the prison Wednesday. More have come since.
And I actually had a chance to talk with Governor Braun this week about that prayer vigil, and I asked him how he would answer that question. that the clergy were asking during that vigil.
When it comes to ICE and detaining folks, they kept asking clergy, what would Jesus do? And I know as a man of faith and practicing Catholic, I wonder how you would answer that question.
When it comes down to the humanity of dealing with anyone that has issues, especially as it relates to asylum, that would cross almost all faith, that you need to help. That doesn't mean you have open borders. That doesn't mean you don't hold accountable folks that game the system. It'd be that simple. They are going to probably err on the side of even being more lenient, because that's a principle that I think crosses most faith. But when it comes to the particularities of issues that are egregious in nature, that's what this is focusing on, and there could be a difference in approach there. Clearly, I don't think they would be out there rationalizing or justifying, coddling criminals. I think they're talking about refugees, immigrants in general.
So clearly defining what he thinks is a difference in how they should be treated.
Right. Governor Braun there repeating his line from the campaign, saying the worst first, right? He said that during the campaign. But data first reported by our friends at the Capitol Chronicle found that many of the undocumented immigrants arrested in Indiana so far had no prior criminal record.
And while the federal government is shut down, ICE will continue its enforcement efforts, although because of this federal shutdown, just like the active duty military agents will not be paid until this shutdown ends. Still ahead, power companies are facing pushback from sky-high electrical rates. What Indianapolis's City County Council is considering doing about it.
And what do Hoosiers think about the push to redraw Indiana's congressional maps? Inside a town hall meeting next on Crossroads Politics. Welcome back. On Monday, Indiana Democrats sat down with Hoosiers to share their thoughts on redistricting and to hear what voters had to say.
And the main issue, the main message from Democrats is that mid-decade redistricting suppresses voters' voices. But it's not just that. They say it's also a bad financial decision for the state. Logan Gabe reports.
Hoosiers came from near and far for a discussion about the Republican push to redraw the state's congressional map and how it could impact them.
I feel like we're having our rights taken away. I feel that decisions are being made that aren't for the common good.
A trio of House Democrats hosted the town hall. They say it was an opportunity for voters to ask questions and voice concerns.
We would go from 7 Republican and 2 Democrat seats to very likely 9 Republican and 0 Democrat seats in our state. And keep in mind, Democrats range from 40 to 45% of Hoosiers at any given time in recent elections. And so those folks wouldn't be represented at all in Congress.
Democratic Caucus Chair Carrie Hamilton says calling the special session to redistrict would come at a cost, anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 a day. Now, nothing is set in stone. 13 News recently talked to Governor Mike Braun, who said to call a special session, there's got to be buy-in. But he said he thinks the state is headed in that direction.
I think people have been considering it, seeing how it plays out in the big picture, and I think there's more of an appetite for it, but I don't think that's been whipped or counted. I think we're still getting there.
Louis Burgess says this meeting inspired him to do his part and have his voice be heard.
If we don't speak up and speak out and recognize what is going on and take our fair share of our democracy back, I'm saying at the end of the day, they feel like they don't care about us.
That was our Logan Gay reporting. Because nothing is set in stone, Representative Hamilton says this means there is still time for Hoosiers in both parties to call their legislator and the governor's office and tell them what they think.
And the governor previously told us if there is a special session, it could happen anytime between early November and January.
Although at this point, early November is looking less and less likely now that we're into October.
It's coming up.
All right, Indianapolis city leaders are turning their attention now to the people with the power to say no to AES Indiana's rate increase proposal.
Earlier this year, the utility company filed a request asking customers for more money. Alex Alamanza explains why the City County Council is now weighing in.
Counselors say AES's proposal could land you right here, digging into your wallet for more and more money. And while the City County Council can't block the increase themselves, they want to make sure that state leaders know that their answer is no. At Tuesday's Administration and Finance Committee meeting, Councilor Michael Paul Hart introduced a proposal aimed at AES and state lawmakers. It got unanimous support from councilors.
I want to send a message to AES, I want to send a message to the governor, and I want to send a message to the IURC that the people of Indianapolis don't want to see a rate increase.
This year, AES filed a request with the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission to increase power bills by $21 for a household using 1,000 kilowatt hours a month. The utility says it's because of inflation, operational costs, and infrastructure upgrades. But Hart's proposal would allow the City County Council to take a stance against the rate hike and collectively urge AES to withdraw its proposal.
Earlier in the year, it was talks about property taxes going up. It's about groceries going up. And then you start putting two and two together and you see these rate increases being proposed. That's going to be another hit on people of Indianapolis.
The Citizens Action Coalition spoke to the committee on behalf of concerned citizens.
It felt good to see a resolution adopted unanimously, to see folks add their names to it. That's a good sign that folks are hearing their constituents. They're reading the room, if you will, that nobody wants this rate increase.
In a statement, AES said the IURC has the authority to decide on their request, saying in part, "We will continue to follow the legal requirements of that process. We remain committed to engaging directly with our customers. We are currently hosting a series of community open houses to listen, answer questions, and address concerns one-on-one." AES's next open house is scheduled for October 2nd at Southeast Community Services. Meanwhile, the committee's proposal heads to the full council for a final vote. In Indianapolis, Alex Almanza, 13 News.
Google recently withdrew a plan to build a data center in Indianapolis after strong public pushback.
I'm talking to you now, so I want to know.
Tensions flare inside the fight over another data center project in Morgan County. Next on Crossroads Politics. Welcome back. Google pulled out of a plan to build a big data center in Indianapolis, but it isn't giving up on building in Indiana. In fact, now they plan to expand a data center in nearby Morgan County.
Yeah, a proposed data center, which already got the green light to be rezoned earlier this year, is asking for more land. Alex Alamanza attended a public hearing on the plan where some moments got heated.
It was a case of deja vu as the attorney for the former Google project in Franklin Township showed up here in Morgan County for a separate project where residents pushed back.
I'm talking to you now, so I want to know.
A special hearing on the subject of rezoning more land for a secret data center project near Monrovia drew an overheated crowd. The county's Advisory Plan Commission hearing public comment on what is being dubbed Project Louie to rezone 158 acres of land on top of the 390 that has already been approved for rezoning. On Monday, the attorney for the project, Joe Caldron, saying the additional acreage came from the developer partially out of the blue as an opportunity for future investment, adding the commitments to the quality of life are up to standard.
If we fail to live up those standards, you have the power. You can ask your Plan Commission attorney. If we don't meet our standards, we can be sued, we can be shut down. There is recourse, fines, injunctive relief available, so they are not empty promises.
Residents argue the amount of water, power, and land they use is not beneficial to the community.
I will not let my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, any of them go outside when all that starts. I don't know what that's going to do to them. What's it going to do to our pigs? What's it going to do to the bees? What's it going to do to the chickens? They don't care.
Now, this deal is not set in stone yet. Now that the plan commissioners have given a positive approval of this proposal, it now goes to the Planning Commission on October 6th, where this process continues. In Morgan County, Alex Almanza, 13 News.
Alex, thank you. Also, a big development this week in the governor's push for transparency within the Indiana Economic Development Corporation.
Right. An outside agency's audit has been publicly released. I looked at the findings and the reaction.
Here's where that goes. And then here's the close.
Okay.
Here we go. Go ahead and you can start, Emily.
All right. In 3, 2. That does it for this week's episode of Crossroads Politics here on WTHR+. For Alex Alamanza and Logan Gay, I'm Emily Longnecker.
And I'm Dustin Grove. For all of us here at 13 News, thanks so much for watching. We hope to see you next time.